Mind, body, and spirit.
Those are the first three I discovered.
Got it. Okay.
And I want to be really clear about that you need to think of these as like doorways.
Doorways.
And
okay.
as we have this discussion today, if any one of those things provokes something in you, you're like, I didn't really think about it that way, or I might have a problem in that area or arena.
Okay.
I want to open the door. I want to be rich. I want to have a $10 million business. I want to, like, all that stuff. And they're not thinking about, what do I need to do today? What's the most important thing today? What thing do I need to enjoy today, even though it might be hard, that if I just do it, that thing's already going to happen. Work with purpose. Work with something, and it applies to anywhere. This is where this whole how and what are very, very important. I don't care what you do, the how you do it is the important part.
Welcome to one more episode of Roofers Going Digital TV, where we present the latest trends and the leaders that are changing the path of the roofing industry. And today we have one of those leaders, probably one of my favorite leaders in the roofing industry. Jim, welcome to my show,
brother.
man.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We're at my house, so welcome to you.
Oh, thank you
I'm glad
very
you're
much.
here. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, we are in the Johnson's mansion right here. We are here today.
I don't know about that.
Doing this interview. Jim, thank you for your time one more time. Jim, I want to start right now. Today, the episode is going to be a little bit different. Normally, we talk about roofing, we talk about business, but this episode we are going to talk about, I think, a good life, about the good life.
Yeah.
First of all, before we start having the discussion, first I want to know, what is this new venture that you are doing? What is all this about PH7? We have been seeing that you are communicating and all over the internet right now, starting, but you can see it. What is PH7, Jim?
It's kind of a bit of a story. You okay with a?
Yes,
with
we love stories in the show, man. All
right.
stories, and yours are great, man. I was gonna tell you that.
I appreciate that. About 2 years ago now, I got invited to an event with the John Maxwell Group. And I don't know if you guys, people watching, have ever heard of John Maxwell before, but he's probably the most preeminent author of leadership books. Like, he created leadership pretty much as like a business. He has thousands of people that go through his certifications. I went through them 20 years ago plus, and I have a lot of respect for him. But when I got asked, I was like, oh, that's another thing, you're gonna just want my money. And that wasn't what it was at all. It was actually a personal invite, all expenses paid, to hang out with a small group of highly influential leaders, which made me a little uncomfortable. I'm sitting there like, oh, come on, I just coach contractors, that's all I do. And you're sitting there with people that are freeing slaves in Pakistan, and you're sitting there with folks that have churches that have 70,000 members in multiple campuses. You're sitting there with Deion Sanders. You're sitting with some people you're like, why am I in this room? And so you had a little bit of that, what do you call it when you're not in the right room, that a little bit of like, I'm not quite where they are yet. And the guy that brought me, his name's Jason, I'm super thankful that he did. He said, no, you would not have been invited if you didn't belong here.
Okay.
I went, okay, cool, awesome. And so during this event, I won't make this as long of a story as it was, I won't share the whole event, but the question got asked, does anybody do anything unique that allows them to live a good life? And it was kind of in a circle of all these 30 guys. And I'm sitting there, I can't wait. I'm like excited. I'm gonna hear from all these people what they've done to live a good life, because what they didn't know is for the last 20 years, ever since everything went horrible in my life, it's been my journey. Like, how do I live this way of being prosperous And not the prosperous like Western society, how much money do you have and how well known are you and that kind of stuff, but more, how do you feel about fulfillment? How do you feel about living in a place where there's healthy tension, but not the extremes, not this obsessiveness or this apathy and these things that cause so much problems in our world today. And so I'm waiting for everybody to talk, and nobody says anything. And I said, well, I kind of got this thing. It was the first time I had ever spoken out loud about it, to the point that not even my wife knows. Nobody knew. I hadn't shared it with friends, nothing. It's just my own personal journey trying to make sense of how this life and this world works. Because 20 plus years ago, I had a bookkeeper steal a bunch of money from me, a bunch of people that I thought were my friends leave because they actually went to work with her to start a new company, and I could prove it to them. Like I could prove it to them that she had stolen money. Like I laid it out, like all the profit and loss, all the balance sheet, a whole bit, like everything in front of people, QuickBooks and everything, and they still left. And I was super mad. Like, why in the world would, like, I've helped you live a life you never have lived before, and you're not willing to stick with this? And so I was very much in blaming her for stealing the money, blaming them for deciding to go. And then it kind of hit me. I'll never forget sitting on the front steps of my house, and it hit me that I must be worse than a thief. If they're going to go hang out with her, what does that say about me? And just having some introspection a little bit on like, wow, if that's the case, what makes somebody worse than a thief? Well, they're selfish, they're narcissistic, they're egotistical, they're prideful, everything's about them and nothing's about them, right? And kind of broke down over that. It was the first time in my life, and I'm sitting there at 34, 35 years old, that I didn't have the answers. I've always been the guy with the answers. No matter what goes wrong, how agile you have to be in business, whatever thing hit me, I was always able to solve the problem, come up with the answer. And this particular time I was not able to. And what do we do when we don't have all the answers anymore? I think most people probably go to this thing, hey God, hey man, I don't know what to do next, what do I do? And it just, this overwhelming feeling came over me that I now realized who I really was, and my identity was in me and all about me, and the achievement and the growth and the accolades and all this stuff about building a big, huge company was all about me, and it wasn't about my people or my clients. And this overwhelming sense came on me like, you're a selfish asshole. You need to do the opposite of that and become a servant and selfless.
Okay.
And overnight, literally the very next day, I walked in the office, how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I help you do your job better? What can we do to make your life easier? Everybody looked at me like I was crazy, first off, like, who is this person? They're like a totally different human being. And a little bit of like, didn't trust it. They were like, what's he setting me up for? And stuff like that, the ones that had stuck around. And it took about 6 months for them to start seeing that, hey, I was consistent. I wasn't going to stop. This is who I'm going to be. And it ended up being a new group of people. Things turned around. We were able to do some pretty special things together. But that was a good place for me because I opened a door. There was a door I opened into my spiritual life, and it was a good place to start for me.
And probably the first doors, right?
It was the first door for me, yeah. And it was kind of a bit of a scary place to go into because, you know, I kind of grew up in the church and doing that kind of thing. My family hadn't. I was the very first person in my family to ever go to church.
Okay.
And so I started going in 3rd grade. It was a place where people were kind and good and things like that. My home life wasn't that. And but after some time there, it got very much like you're scared to do anything because you're going to go to hell if you do. And so I kind of got disenchanted with the church. I kind of let life step in and you know, get married, have kids, get busy, business. And the spiritual stuff kind of got set to the side. And hey, maybe on those holidays and those type of things, big occasions, I go to church. But other than that, I was living in the secular world and the world. And so I think all of that was necessary for me to get to there so that I could become who I am today. Now I know that. I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I wasn't aware of that. But as I continued to go down the path, I realized that spiritually things were pretty good, but I still felt like there was things missing.
Okay.
Things I couldn't put my finger on, and I think a lot of us feel that way. Have you ever felt that way? Like something's weird or funky or wonky in my world, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Yes.
I kind of think it might be this, but I can't put my finger on it. And even if I can put my finger on what the thing is, what do I do about it?
Or you want to do it, but you don't do it. You want to do it in the inside, but it's like sometimes I feel like, oh, I want to go help, but I never do it.
Yeah.
Somebody. That's a huge lesson. That's a huge lesson that you had like when you were 35. So have you been practicing this type of life since that age, like since that lesson, or have you been discovering it after years and years?
That's a great question. I would call it discovery early on.
Okay.
After that first year of like, hey, this is going well, but I still don't feel quite right. Like
Okay.
this, I think we're all searching for this idea of what fulfillment is and success and all that stuff. And I wasn't getting all of that. And I said, well, what does that look like? What does that look like?
Okay.
You know, hey, she's joining us with
Yeah,
the podcast
yeah.
today, if that's
Welcome
okay.
too.
Hey, have a seat. Have a seat. Oh, you too, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Great.
they're welcome
Our
too.
dog wrangler, I don't know where she went off to, but it's okay. As long as you're okay with it.
Yeah, yes, of course.
So getting into that frame, I'm good now in my spiritual world and continuing to grow with that. Still not feeling these ability to put a name to the thing that was missing. And so the first two were pretty easy, especially if you're in the spiritual world, that mind, body, and spirit. We hear that a lot, right? So my mind and my body. And so I started to work on those two things because I knew they were an important part. And those led to actually the other four. And it started to realize that there are these 7 things that all of us as humans need. And I thought it was just me at that time.
Okay.
Just me I needed. It was my way to make sense of the world. And I started studying and discovering and things like that for about a decade. Like intense study. Every book I could read, every piece of information I could get on it. What were the things? So I had the 3, and then there was number 4, and there was number 5. And I kept building on them, going, I don't know how many it's going to be, but I'm going to try and get them wrapped up underneath these things. Like, is that truly spirit, this thing that's bothering me? Okay, that needs to be underneath there. Or is it a whole new thing, or at least a big enough thing to say, hey, I need to concentrate on that. So the mind was another one of those big things that I needed to spend some time in. And I don't think most of us take enough time to think, especially in today's world. I'm going back 20 years ago. It's hard to take time to think. Things are moving fast, busy, family, work, all this stuff. And I think we've been in this mode of being busy a lot. And so what that does is it puts us in reactionary mode all the time instead of proactive. And where we're proactive is when we think. And one of the things I noticed is that I would do most of my thinking at night, right before I would go to bed. And I'd get that thinking going, it'd keep me awake all night long. And I said, okay, so my one of my needs is this ability to think and take time and be creative and curious, because through that I come up with great ideas and big things that can solve big problems and stuff like that. I need to take time for that. But I didn't want to start taking that time in the evenings. I wanted to take that time in the mornings because it was messing up my sleep. We'll get to that one in just a minute, why that became so important. And so I started to take intentional time for thinking. And what I started to realize is like, things started to feel better. Started to feel like, hey, I'm getting where things feel right. And then, again, something's off. What's missing? Now the body thing comes into play. With all the work and with all the obsession, with all the stuff that goes with all that, with all the trial I had gone through, I kind of let my body go. I was the heaviest I had ever been. I was out of shape. I had a doctor tell me, you got to be on high blood pressure medicine, you got to be on all this stuff. And I went, hey, before we do any of that, are you cool with me just see if I can change my diet, see if I can change my exercise, and let's see what happens. I'll come back and see you in 3 months. And sure enough, I did, and I did what I knew at the time, which, funny enough, even before that, I'd been in the health club world, so I knew how to work out and get in shape and eat right and stuff. And came back 3 months later, he's like, dude, healthy as a horse, you don't have to do anything. No pills, no shots, no nothing. Like, doing great. And okay, so body is another thing.
Okay.
What else do I need to know about the body? And so the easy things were nutrition and sleep and exercise. But the things we don't think about a whole lot are things like sleep, okay, hydration, these things that are really rest for our bodies. And so I got really deep in that, studying like master level books and from master's programs at colleges and teachers and the best of the best. And I started to realize these things that we need to get out of our world, that are poison putting into us. And even the things that were poison, like being aware of them and made me mindful of them, like how about not so much of them anymore? You know, nothing wrong with having a cocktail here and there. Having a bunch of cocktails, not so great for you. All things in moderation, right? I've chosen now not to drink anymore. And like I don't have anymore. I chose that almost 3 months ago now.
Nice.
And
congratulations.
Well, see, that's the reaction. That's the reaction from people is like, congratulations, or I'm proud of you, or something like that. I don't think that should be the reaction. I think the reaction should be nice. And the reason for that is, I think people that have a problem with that, first off, I don't understand it because I've never experienced it. In my home, to have a couple of beers working on a hot Saturday, no big deal. Hanging out with some friends and having a couple, no big deal. It wasn't like something I needed. I go months without drinking normally anyway. It wasn't an addiction in any way. And so it was actually a life choice because now I've discovered what putting poison into my body does. Literally puts holes in your brain. Brain's the most important thing I have anymore at my age, and I'd like to keep it for as long as I can. So I made a personal choice, not a choice of I have to, right? And so while I appreciate that, it's not so much about you, it's more about me and taking care of my body and how important that is to me and my mind. And so spirit, mind, body. Got really good at that, feeling really good about life, and things are great, but still there were these things I'm just like, can't quite put my finger on it.
1 second, coach. You have said right now how many pillars, how many parts of the 7 elements. You said body.
Yep.
You said spiritual. You said mind. Those are 3, right?
Yep, those are 3.
Okay, have you
That's
said
the first 3?
Those are the first 3. Mind, body, and spirit.
Those are the first 3 I discovered.
Got it. Okay.
And I want to be really clear about that you need to think of these as like doorways.
Doorways.
And as we have this discussion today, if any one of those things provokes something in you, you're like, we didn't really think about it that way, or I might have a problem in that area or arena.
Okay.
I want to open the door.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be spirit first or mind second or body third. It might be one of these others I share with you, and you walk through that door.
That one was gonna be one of the questions that I was gonna ask is how can we start? But you just answered it like you need to feel it and analyzing yourself which one you are strong on that one or which one you are weak. Can we call it like that?
Yeah, because while I say spiritual was kind of the first one for me, now that I sit back and look at it, mind may have actually been the first one because I actually thought about it.
Okay.
I became aware, mindful of it, that something's not quite right, which led me to the spiritual part. So the doors can be different for different people.
Okay.
I think we're all unique, and so we all have different needs and wants in our life, and we're all in a different place in our journeys. We all see the world in different ways. We've all been in different environments, and the idea is just to open a door. Like open a door to one of these 7 things. If your world's perfect, you can stop listening to the podcast now, but I doubt that that's the case for most of us. And so I get those 3 down, and it started to lead to some other things. And so you start asking questions. Where does the rest of everything that happens out there fall underneath each one of these three things? And I started thinking a lot about the aspect of time, especially as you get older, like me. Right? You start thinking about time, and I'm like, okay, so what does time have to do with it? Well, that's the most valuable asset we have, all of us. We only get, 80, 85 years if we're lucky on this planet, and there's eternity to consider, so it's just this little small snippet of things. And with that time I'm given, how do I optimize it and prioritize it? And what I learned through the research and study and time there was that my efforts there lead to my financial security. If I can prioritize and optimize my time the right way, along with these other things that I'm going to share with you, it will lead to my financial security. It's also going to lead to some other things, but I think that's a big thing that a lot of people are after, and they're thinking about the outcome all the time. I want to be rich. I want to have a $10 million business. I want to, like, all that stuff, and they're not thinking about, what do I need to do today? What's the most important thing today? What thing do I need to enjoy today, even though it might be hard, that if I just do it, that thing's already going to happen. The outcome's determined if you do the thing today, and finding love in that journey is actually more important than finding love in the outcome, because what you'll find in the outcome might not be what you thought it was. I had everything you could imagine. I was sitting there thinking, should I buy a plane to prove myself? And the reality was, getting to the finish line and realizing that I hadn't spent the time with my kids I wanted to spend. I missed the first steps of my daughter because I was busy working. And the only reason I was working that way was because I didn't know any better.
Okay.
I didn't know what I needed to know.
That's the way people taught us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Work all the time.
Because it's the only thing we know.
Yeah.
So and don't get me wrong, it works. You work a lot, you put 80 hours in, 100 hours in a week. I've proven it. You can be very successful doing that. But at the end, what do you actually have to show for it?
That's not it.
You have to sacrifice everything else that's important to you to do that. And actually, we're talking about the next pillar.
Okay.
Work fulfillment.
Okay. The fourth one was time?
Time,
Okay.
prioritization, optimization. So time is the core concept, but prioritizing what's important and optimizing the way you do it,
Okay.
so that I can do more in less time.
It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
I would say that's a pretty good way of putting it.
Okay. Perfect.
There's tools out there, there's knowledge out there, there's depth of understanding in that knowledge that I work 25, 30 hours a week. I probably get more done in that 25, 30 hours than most people do in 80.
Yes.
Because I work in a way that puts me in position to do the right thing at the right time based on who I am as an individual. I get my studying in the morning, I get my writing in the morning, I get my thinking in the morning, I get my cold plunge and hot tub
Nice.
in
Every
the
day?
morning. Almost every day.
Oh, okay.
I want to be careful about saying every or
Okay.
always.
Okay.
Things get in the way. I didn't do my cold plunge this morning.
Okay.
I actually talked to my wife about it as I was walking out the door to be with you. I'm like, hey, I think I'm gonna do my cold plunge after this.
Nice.
Because I do enjoy it and I like to get it in each day. But you are a priority.
Thank you very much.
You, right now, this moment in time, this time that we're talking together is the most important thing to me. Not my phone, not my dog, not all the distractions, not that bird singing over there, any of that kind of stuff. It's you.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
hopefully these listeners, but
Yes.
really you.
Thank you.
That's prioritizing your time.
Okay, that one was the fourth one. The first one, you were saying work for fulfillment.
Yeah, that's
right?
the fifth one.
That's the first one.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the fifth one, work fulfillment. And so,
With that one, do you mean that work like crazy?
no,
Okay.
work with purpose.
Okay.
Work with something, and it applies to anywhere. This is where this whole how and what are very, very important. I don't care what you do, the how you do it is the important part. And really the why you're doing the thing in the first place. Okay. And so I can find fulfillment with where I am now living in my life if I was a janitor at a school. Because my whole thing right now is to help as many people find this way of living a good life for them as possible. I could help students and teachers and other faculty members find that through how I do my work. They see something different in me than they see through the normal person they observe. And they ask me a question, it's like, why are you different? And that's always the question I usually get. Now, I told you about the other question, what's unique. This one, the first one I've been getting for a long time is, why are you the way you are? What makes you different? Why do you do things the way you do things? And that tends to be a very easy conversation for me because I'm like, hey, I got this guy, his name's Jesus, he's in my life, he's really cool. And knowing him has allowed me to let go of a bunch of things, and I don't have this fear anymore, this burden, all that stuff. And so that's usually where that goes, and it stops right there. But nobody ever asked me the unique part. What was unique about the way that I do the thing I do? And what's unique is these 7 things. Anytime I feel off in any part of my life, I go, okay, what are those 7 things? There it is. It's that one. It's that thing right there. And one of those things for me was work fulfillment. We got a bug there. Was I experiencing joy in what I do? And I wasn't experiencing joy anymore in doing the contracting thing. I was just doing the contracting thing because it made me a bunch of money. I did help a lot of people along the way in those later years of being in it, but I had something more I wanted to do.
And it was one thing only of the 7 that we are discussing right now.
Yeah, and I was still doing all that discovery and all that work those first 10 years to figure out what these things were, so I could just get my life into a manageable situation where I felt like I kind of lived in this sweet spot. And I'll share a little bit more about that sweet spot in just a minute. But if I'm not doing something where I can share with people the things that are important, I probably don't want to do that thing anymore. And I experienced that in the contracting world, and I was able to leave a good impact behind there and share that off to others. I get to see so many that were in part of my organization doing amazing things today, and they come back to me today and talk with me today, and I love that part. But I still needed to evolve and grow. And I built a piece of software, and the software was pretty cool, and that software was cool enough that AccuLinks wanted to buy it. So they bought it and asked me to be a part of their thing. New challenge, exciting. I like new and exciting things. And so I jumped in feet first. And my whole job was to make AccuLinks a thing. I think we did okay. It's out there now and everybody knows what it is in our industry. Maybe some of the others listening to your podcast don't know, but AccuLinks is probably the most known software in our industry, would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's something I've always been good at, is like when I believe in something, I get behind it and help other people believe in it too. But I'm still doing all that discovery stuff during all that. And I'm kind of coming towards the end of it. And at the end of that discovery, I started to realize that helping people understand software and the importance of it to their business wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. Although it was creating conversations I wanted to have, it wasn't quite there yet. And that's when I turned in my letter of resignation.
Okay.
I wanted to help people in a deeper, more impactful way. And that's kind of what brought out this whole contractor coaching thing.
Okay.
I wanted to impact people's lives with the experience and knowledge that I had from a business perspective, but also a life perspective. This, yeah, I understand you want to build a great big thing and awesome and all that other stuff, but why?
Why?
And why is it important? And what does it bring you to build that thing? And so we get to have these personal conversations as well. Our whole thing that we didn't realize until actually recently was that we were helping people build the businesses they wanted to without sacrificing what was most important to them. They weren't sacrificing their families anymore.
Okay.
We weren't making them work 80, 100 hours a week. We were giving them the steps to do in a way to do them that was knowledge they would have had to learn through experience before, that freed up time to do the things that they need to do, to take care of their bodies and take care of their families and do the things that we all want to do. And so it became very fulfilling. As a matter of fact, doing Contractor Coach Pro is the longest I've ever done anything in my life.
Okay. How many years was that?
12 years now.
12, okay.
12 years this year is
Nice.
how long we've been doing this. Because I usually get bored. Like, hey, I got that thing solved, I'm good at it, and now it's boring. It's not boring, Contractor Coach Pro, because we actually get to have these relationships with people and change some lives, which is really cool. Like I said, 2 years ago, go to this event, question gets asked, I raise my hand, I say, hey, yeah, I kind of do this prosperous thing. And I've shared 5 of the things with you, okay?
Yes.
And I shared the 7 things with them. And they
Okay.
said, what's it all about? I said, well, it's these 7 things, and I feel like anytime my world's off, I can put my finger on it, go solve the problem in that thing, and get back to being in a place where I feel fulfilled and joyful and unburdened. And they're like, tell us more tomorrow. So I had to go put some stuff together, share it for a little bit longer the next day, and the questions didn't stop. Like, where did this come from? Why are you doing it this way? And I've never seen it like that before, and why that thing? And it was just nonstop. And even to the
Were
point—
you the only one? I'm sorry for interrupting you. Were you the only one in the group that have had this idea, or was someone else with something similar?
2 or 3 other guys spoke up, shared their thing, but there was nothing that kept going. It was like, oh, cool. And it wasn't bad or anything. I want to be really clear about that. This one just prompted a lot of questions and provoked a lot of people because they hadn't really thought about it that way. Because I'll clear that up in just a second once I get the 7 things out, like why it might provoke you. And so thing number 6 and 7, I've talked to about one a little bit. You may have heard it, this family thing. But really it's bigger than that. It's community.
Community.
And so you are first in the community. You're kind of the central hub of the community. Then you have your family, and then your extended family, then your friends, so your inner circle of friends, then your outer circle of friends, then your acquaintances, then the people that just know you in your social circles and that you have influence with. And they're like these concentric circles all rotating around you. And if you don't have enough, or you're too little in that, that's a problem. But if you have too many, that's also a problem. And so I dug into that and what community was. And I think that's actually one of the real underlying issues in our world today that people don't really realize is big community, like living in a big city, you lose the small community that has power. I mean, how many of us know our neighbors? I mean, I live in this neighborhood. I've been here for 5 years. There's 1,785 houses, so about, 3,000 to 4,000 people. I know one. They've invited me over to hang out at their place a couple of times for a get together with other families and other people, and I didn't sync with them. They're not my community.
And one question regarding community. What are some recommendations? This is one, probably you were gonna go there, but what are some recommendations? Because probably a lot of the pillars, or the 7 pillars, probably people is gonna say like, I know that, but it's really different to know them than to apply them and to live them. So regarding the community, what are some things that we can do?
So first off, you have to identify which side of the equation you're on. Is it like you're feeling overwhelmed with so many people in your community that they're like sucking you dry and you feel like, man, I just don't have any more to give? Or are you over here where you're alone, you don't have anybody, you don't belong, you don't feel like you're a part of something? Once you kind of figure that out, then you can start to solve the problems by reducing the number of people that you are in relationship with, or increasing the number of right people that you're in relationship with.
Also identifying your community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because probably you can have a bad community of like your friends that are the bad influence.
I already got rid of a lot of friends, or friends. I'll put quotes around that. Here's the best way to find out if somebody's a friend or not.
Okay.
Do they lift you up or push you down? Are they comparing themselves to you at all times and trying to outdo you, or are they celebrating you? If they're celebrating you, that just might be a friend. If they're trying to outdo you, that's a competitor. So those are some of the things that you can do when it comes to this. Now I'm going to get back more to the either side of this thing. I want to talk about that.
Okay, got it.
And so that all ultimately led to the last one for me to really discover. The thing that was missing the most in my life was this feeling of impact. Is my life worth living if I'm not making impact on another human being? When I realized it wasn't. And that could be very small, just your family. Are you making an impact with your family that gives you fulfillment? You can show them love, serve, and caring in a way that they fosters growth in them, creates an environment around them where they can flourish and thrive, or are you taking away from them? And if you're taking away from them, you're gonna start feeling it. There's gonna be something off in your world and you're not gonna be able to put your finger on it. And then that, goes out in those circles. In my friends, am I having an impact? In my bigger circles, am I having an impact? And I think there's this idea of significance. You'll hear that a lot with people that talk in leadership circles. I need this feeling of significance and stuff like that. I don't know if I agree with how they're looking at it.
Okay.
Because I think significance to most people is how many people I impact. It's a numbers game, starts to be competitive, achievement, all this same stuff that we're going down the road. And my question would be, if you impacted one human being, well, isn't that enough?
Yeah, for sure.
Who knows what that human being could do?
Yeah.
Who knows how many other people they could impact? I also think we get wrapped up in this idea of legacy, this legacy. Yeah. And if you hear anybody talk about legacy, I always say, like, put your filter on when they talk about legacy. If they use the words my and I and what I want to achieve, what I want to leave behind, my legacy, I want to be this, that's putting ourselves on a pedestal and an idol and all that other good stuff. I would be cautious of.
Okay, that's a really good point. Because I think legacy is a trendy topic.
Oh yeah. And the reason it's trendy is because you want to be remembered. You want to have significance. You want to be recognized for your value to others, and you have it wrapped up in your identity. And if your identity is in that, you will feel a lack of value, impact, and worth because your identity is in the legacy you leave behind. Here's the sad news. You're not. Nobody's going to build a statue of most of us. And even those statues come tumbling down. I challenge most people, think of 50 people that you can think of that are more than 200 years ago. Most of us can't name 10.
Yeah.
And the 10 we can name, probably about half and half good and evil, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be remembered for the bad stuff. I'd like to be remembered for the good stuff, but if I'm not, it's okay. What I'd rather have, and what would actually give me true fulfillment, is that by the relationship that I have with you or anybody else or the listeners out there, that something I shared today was impactful for you enough to take action on it, address it in your world, and then share it with others. That impact to me, my name will never be attached to it, and that's okay. But I hope that it starts to heal a very broken world. I hope it starts to build bridges instead of burn them. I hope that it starts to undivide a very divided world. And whether I'm remembered for it, I could care less, because it's not me. It's God. Like, it's His word. This is anything I'm sharing today isn't me. This is instruction and stuff that has been for thousands and thousands of years. And we've just lost sight of the importance of it. And whether you're a person that's a faith or believer person or not, I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because you had a bad experience at church.
For sure.
Doesn't mean that you don't maybe desire a relationship with your Creator. And I'd dig into that if it's provoking you.
Why do you think we have confused this way of life right now with the society? Like, why do you think we are so confused on the way of living, and we think like being prosperous and having all these pillars? We don't live with the 7 pillars. Why do you think that happened?
Because we're human. it is what we're made up of. I mean, from the very beginning. Come on, dude. Don't touch that tree. Don't eat that fruit. We did it anyway. Don't do this. We did it anyway. Because we put ourselves and our authority above all others. You may think about it. I'm glad you asked that question. Think about this for just 1 second. Who are you most worried about?
My family.
See, everybody says that.
Okay.
I bet you're not.
From me?
Yeah.
Not from me?
Worried about you, because if I don't take care of me, then maybe I can't be there for my family and do that kind of stuff. If I don't make all the money, I can't take care of my family. If I don't succeed, we have all this stuff that we're wrapped up in. And I think that is the root of our issue, is we're trying to put ourselves on this pedal of authority and ownership. You hear that? Take ownership. What's the big catchphrase right now? Oh, it's not ultimate ownership. It's, what's the word? Can't remember. Doggone it. But there's this concept of ultimately owning everything that ever happens to you, you're the owner of. No, you're not. I don't own the fact that today my wife could be out driving somewhere and get hit by a car and die.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't own that. It's something that could happen, and I'm not in control or in charge or anything of that. It actually was the most freeing point in my life when I gave up ownership and I gave obedience. I'm like, I'm gonna be obedient to this instruction that's been given to me, and I'm just gonna go do that every day. It took a long time for me to get there, by the way. I didn't just do that at a snap of my finger, because I'm a competitive, hard driving, A-type personality. I want to succeed, compete, win, and I still do. I just don't want it to be above what's important. I don't want it to be above you or above my Creator. And so I put it in its proper order. And whenever I approach the world through obedience, now I can let go of all the responsibility for everything. While I still have some responsibilities, I am not ultimately responsible. Does that make sense?
Yes, for everything.
Yeah. And I think we get so anxious over everything that we feel responsible for that it puts us in a very, very difficult position. And it's worse today than it's ever been before. We see so much responsible activity. It's not that long ago. 50 years ago, it wasn't a big deal to have a small house was fine. But now you're gonna have a bigger house, and then a bigger house, and then a bigger house, and a bigger house. And you started out coming from the mansion, like, this house is 1/2 the size of the house I had before. I don't need the big house. That's not what it's about. I need the big impact. And not one that is related to me, but it's related to him, and I get to share it with others. Whenever, that may not be the place you start, by the way. Like, that's a place I've come to after taking this journey of living as a prosperous human. It may not be where other people end up, and that's okay. I hope it is, but that's not the point of the whole thing. At least for you. For me it is, but for you it might be something different. This impact that we leave behind is different than the other 6 things, because the other 6 things are, think of them as things that I can tangibly take action on and do these steps, start to uncover a few things. We'll talk about that in a second. But impact is more about questions.
Okay.
Who do I want to impact? What do I want to impact? Where do I want to impact? When do I want to do that? How do I want to do it? Why? Yeah, all those questions. Like, it could be just a simple answer that I'm not feeling enough impact in my life, which is not giving me the fulfillment that I'm looking for. Where can I start? How about let's start with our families? Maybe let's start with me first. Let's fix me. Because if you're not right, then everything else around you is going to be wrong. And so think of yourself as like this seed, right? Like, this is you, and you have this ability to either create an environment where you grow, or you can create an environment where you die. and you're the root of this thing. You know, seeds start to grow. You have the right environment around you where you can proliferate, and so you start to grow. You start to get some focus. You got like the stem coming up, right? And there's focus in what it is that you're doing, but you're not ever going to be able to do anything amazing without other people. And so those are the branches. Think of that as the we part of this. So there's me, the seed, the roots, and that kind of stuff, the trunk, and then I've got these we's that become involved in what we're doing, and together we produce something we could never do by ourselves. I could do something pretty amazing all by myself. I can do something world-changing with a great group of people. And so when you bring those we's into the equation, now you can produce a fruit for them, all the other folks out there.
So we start with ourselves with the first three parts: mind, spirit, and body.
Maybe.
Maybe yes, exactly.
Maybe you just feel like your time is out of control. You're busy, you're overwhelmed, and you're not doing the right things at the right time. And that's me sharing that with you, that provokes something in you. Go dig into that part first. You'll probably come to mind, body, and spirit at some point. But hey, we all got to take a first step, and the first step's different for different people.
Then we go with time.
Yep.
Then we go with, you said, what was the fifth one?
So you got time. We talked about work fulfillment.
Work fulfillment.
We talked about community.
Community, and then impact.
Yeah.
And those are the 7.
Those are the 7.
Okay. You already said, you already gave us some recommendations on how can we start, and it's the first thing is analyzing ourselves. But do you have other recommendations? For example, read books. And guys, probably a lot of you guys are already doing a lot of these, but it's not. There is more
Are
into
you?
this.
I'm betting you aren't. I'm betting
bet.
you're not even thinking about these 7 things in your life. You're just
Agree.
feeling like things are off.
I agree, but people think that they are like that mindset of, oh, dude, I know all that. Everybody knows it, but there is more.
Well, here's the more. Well, let's talk about the more.
Yes.
You now need to go, okay, those are 7 things. That's not earth-shattering, right? Like there's nothing really new about that. Try to think of anything else that's an 8th thing.